Welcome to the Sunday morning Quantum Transcendence Gathering, where our primary purpose is to create a community of like-minded, like-hearted individuals that inspire, encourage, and support one another along our individual and collective journey towards personal transformation. Our focus does not rest upon what beliefs, habits, or behaviors have led us to this group, rather on the vision we hold for our futures and how our growing collective can help support us in the achievement of our goals. We are not a religious group, nor do we follow a specific spiritual tradition. Our wish is that we remain conflict-free atmosphere, honoring and respecting all forms of spiritual and personal growth, so long as they cause no harm. We do not yet follow any specific literature at this time and are open to sharing various methods of transformation that have worked for our members. Our group does not exist to make any person or group choice right or wrong, but solely to support and inspire personal growth, both for the group and the individual and the collective. Thank you guys for being here, and I guess we start it with the heart coherence.
So I'm going to introduce our speaker. Nat Olson is your numerologist and philosopher-friend with a passion for decoding the mystery of life. She's here to help you unearth your numbers or your superpowers hidden in your birth name and your birth date so you can create the life that you really want. For over a decade, Nat has been coaching individuals in her private numerology practice. She's become the secret weapon for best-selling authors, Wall Street financiers, and CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies. She's also been a featured columnist for the largest online numerology and spiritual community in the world, numerologist.com, with over 2 million trusted viewers and readers. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Nat, and we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to be doing like a question and answer where Joe and I are going to ask Nat questions for a little while, and then we're going to open it up to the group for questions. So I'll start off by asking Nat, tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to this point in your life.
Well, I never thought I was going to become a numerologist. In fact, I resisted this a lot. Like, you know how other people who are living their dream and their passion, it's something that they wanted, like maybe they wanted to be a doctor or they wanted to be an activist. This was something that I never would have expected. In my early 20s, I was a nutritionist and I was walking my talk. I was doing like workshops at gyms, and I had my own, private practice where I was helping people eat healthy and get confident. And one morning I woke up really, really sick. And it was like the ultimate cosmic joke, all my friends said, because, on like New Year's Eve, everybody else was drinking champagne and I was having herbal tea. And here I was, bedridden. From the onset of my symptoms to about 6 months later, I had been bedridden. I could barely eat. I could barely walk. And I consulted everybody that I knew, very highly educated people, professors, colleagues, specialists, and nobody could figure out what was going on. They knew that I was sick. They knew that I had the white blood cell count of a chemo patient, but they didn't really know why. And I remember going to one specialist, and we had saved like the last bit of money to, have me go to this one guy, Kaiser Permanente in Santa Rosa, California. I still remember the guy. And everything was betting on this. And he just ended up saying that you might just have this for the rest of your life. So go home and adjust. And the only thing that I could do at the time was read. And so there were 2 books that changed my life and set me on a different path. One book was by Ernest Holmes, The Science of Mind. And I'm going to butcher this quote, but the passage said, when we're dead, when our body is dead, lying on the ground, we can no longer be sick and we can no longer be well because something has left the building, so to speak. Now they called it the mind, right? But in essence, it's that spiritual aspect of who we are. And this was like a sledgehammer on my head. It was because I had spent so much of my adult life at that point believing that if you have a problem in the physical world, you solve it with physical things. And this was the moment where I would say my spiritual awakening happened. So because I was backed into a corner and nobody could help me, and nobody in the physical world who was a master of the physical world could help me, I had to open back up to my spiritual life. And then there was this book that I had stored away since I was a teenager. I bought it when I was like 16. And it was a book by the MIT mathematician, Matthew Goodwin, who has since passed, but he fell in love with numbers, obviously, as a mathematician, but he stumbled upon this ancient tradition called numerology. And numerology is based on the premise that, first of all, numbers are the fingerprints of a divine intelligence behind existence. You could call that God, you could call that your creator, the universe. But it's also based on the premise that the numbers that are in your birth date and birth name can help you identify how you were designed by this infinite intelligence. When I crunched my numbers, I still get chills when I think about it. I'm lying in bed and I'm crunching the numbers. I learned more about why I was sick in that 10 minutes than I had, learned about why I was sick in those 6 months of consulting, the best of the best. In numerology, I'm an 8 life path, which means that my mission is all about power and authority. And the way that it works is that the only way that you can become the master of something, the only way that you can step into your powerful purpose is by experiencing the opposite. So every 8 life path gives their power away, right? Like every 8 life path will believe that other authority figures have more power than they do. And that's precisely what I was doing in my life at the time. I see some like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so I just remember going, wow, okay, so there's an energy, like Natalie, there's an energy, Natalie, that animates my cells, the citizen cells of my body. What if I'm not honoring this part of who I am? Like, what if I'm actually denying the way that my creator designed me? What if that's creating this thing that I'm experiencing? So I started to actually ponder my numbers every morning when I woke up, and asking myself how I could embody these aspects of my nature. And I got better. And I got better so fast that it was shocking to me and it was shocking to everybody around me. But not only did I heal, from something that was considered incurable and unexplainable, but then when I started to crunch the numbers of the other people in my life, it was like I was rubbing shoulders with God. And I use that term loosely, God, because I grew up in a Italian Catholic family. But I had never experienced the divine. I had tried so hard and I had never experienced what the mystics had talked about, of feeling like you're rubbing shoulders with this like beautiful, luminous, loving energy. But that moment I did. I remember I was sitting at Lake Siskiyou in Mount Shasta, California, doing the numbers of my dad, who is one of my best friends. But we had a contentious relationship when I was a teenager. And I crunched his numbers and I was like, this can't be right. Like, this can't be right. He was, the 2 main numbers in his chart were the 9 life path and the 9 expression number. The 9 is the humanitarian. My father had been a political activist my whole life. He had dragged me out to protest in Berkeley, California, and I every dinner, oh God, as a teenager, I couldn't stand him. Every dinner was about what was going on in the world and the plights of humanity. And it was like this moment where I went, oh my God, this is how he was designed. And honestly, we could talk about this later, but the thing that breaks my heart is that we can deny these aspects of ourselves, right? We can deny who we are, but also that we could deny the aspects of our loved ones. I had always judged my dad. I had always been irritated and almost tolerated these incredible, beautiful things about him. But when I did his numbers, I was able to go, oh my, I get it. I get it. This is his mission. This is why he's here. The So then I did the numbers of my sister. Oh my, you can't. It was just like uncanny. And then I started working with clients, nutrition clients who were sort of hippy dippy trippy and open to this stuff. And they were getting more results from learning about their numbers than from months and months of menu plans and the like that I was doing. Because again, it was, what I saw happening is that when we start to honor these aspects of who we are, things tend to work out. Like we start to actually get in touch with ourselves, how to honor ourselves, and thus how to take action in our lives for well-being. So I still remember really early on, a client, still gives me goosebumps. This client, she had wanted to be a 911 operator when she was a little girl. Like, you know, we play house, like she would pretend she was a 911 operator when she was a little girl. Her two numbers in numerology, the two core numbers were 9 and 11. You know, it's like these synchronicities were just, and I got to tell you, like, I know I seem hippie, dippy trippy. I wasn't. I was floored by these things. So to the utter disdain of my Italian father, I said, I'm abandoning my nutrition career and I'm becoming a numerologist. People are still like, wait, a neurologist? No, nope. That's how I got into this.
That's really great. Thank you. That was an awesome answer. So you said, you talked about two things, life path number and like life expression. Could you give a little more detail on maybe what those things are, as far as like, what are the different life paths and what's a life expression?
Yeah. So, so in numerology, you have a very intricate chart. So every single one of us has a sort of algorithm of numbers. And I want to talk about the law of uniqueness because that's really important, but we can put a pin in that. But we all are each unique. So we each have our own sequence of numbers, okay? So, but the way that we get those numbers is through your birth date and your birth name. So for the sake of convenience, because I can't do everybody's name and it's very complex, the easiest place to start is your birth date. And so that's your life path number. Your life path number comes from adding your birth date down to a single digit, okay? Your expression number and some of the other numbers that we use in your chart, your expression number comes from your birth name. But for the sake of today, what would be really cool is for all of us to crunch our numbers. Should we do that right now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So now if you have a computer, you can do this really easy by just going and Googling like calculate my life path number, but I'll talk you through it as well. So what you want to do is write down your month, day, and year, and make sure you write down the full year. So like for me, 1983, not just 83, right? So month, day, and year, make sure the month is a number. So I am September 5th, 1983. So September is a 9, 5, 1983. Okay. So once you write your birth date down, then I want you to take each section, the month, the day, the year, and add it down to a single digit. So for me, as a September, it's 9. But if you're born in December, it would be a 3 because 1 + 2 = 3. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So then same to the day. So if you're born on the 21st, it adds down to 3. If you're born on the 5, you can just leave it there. Okay. So add it down. If you're born on like the 28th and it equals 10, right? Keep adding until you get a single digit. 1 + 0 = 1. Make sense? Okay, and then the same to the year. The year is probably the most complicated mathematically. So 1 + 9 + 8 + 3, right? And then when you get a double digit, keep adding it down until you get a single digit.
Gotcha.
And once you do that, you add those 3 numbers together. And if you get a double digit, keep adding until you get that single digit. That is your life path number. So Kyle, you're a 3, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll give everybody a second to finish.
And a
So
little backstory, just because
yeah,
something
go
that
ahead.
happened yesterday. I've never done numerology, but we started talking about it. And I take out this deck of cards every day, pretty much, and I flip cards. And depending on what card I turn over, I will do that exercise for a workout. And the boys, we have kids, they took this deck of cards and they lost it somewhere. So I had to go get a new deck of cards in the drawer. So I started flipping this deck yesterday, and I had to call Joe because this was so absurd. But I drew 19 3 of clubs in a row, and I took a picture of it, and I was like, "What the heck?" And because there's only 4 3 of there's only 4 threes
That's
in the deck.
unreal.
Yeah, but it was just really odd. So
So, gosh, that's so incredible. So one of the things that's really big right now, like I get messages on this every day. I actually created a program is on the meaning of repeating numbers. Like when you see numbers in your life, what does this mean? And number one, those moments, those like incredibly synchronous moments are a sign that there is this beautiful divine intelligence behind existence that's responding to you and that's speaking to you, right? These unexplainable happenings. There's something going on behind the scenes, right?
yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. But what's also really fascinating, like what you're saying, is that oftentimes the numbers that we see are correlated to our chart. They're correlated to the way that we are designed, the way that that we are. And so you as a 3 life path, so I'll give you guys a sneak peek. This is going to blow you away, Kyle. So our life path number actually isn't who we are. Our life path number is sort of our mission, our training, who we're asked to be. So I don't know, like I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but it's like if it was a superhero movie, right? Like this is the purpose that you were given the moment that you were born. So for 3 life paths, the 3's mission is creativity and self-expression. So in essence, you're here to use your incredible gift of self-expression, your voice, to uplift the world.
Nice.
Now, this is where it gets really powerful. There's something called the Law of Polarity, which I picked up on really early on in my work. And actually, I picked it up from 3's because 3's, when I would do a session with the 3 life path, you guys were the most resistant. So what would happen was I would say, you're a 3 life path, and 3's would be like, no. Like, I think you did it wrong. Like, redo it. Because actually, I don't feel like I'm creative. I actually don't feel like I'm, that way. But what I found was that every single one of us has to experience the opposite of our mission, right? Like I was saying before. So when I did my number 8, I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm not a leader. Yeah. I'm not powerful. I'm not a CEO. Are you kidding me? My whole life, I thought I was never going to amount to anything. Are you kidding me? So for 3's, the pain is that the flavor of pain, the initial training, is that my voice doesn't matter. So 3's are taught or grow up in an environment where that like bright joy, that bright light, that like incredible enthusiasm and positivity and a desire to speak your mind and speak your truth, you're taught to keep it shut down. 3's can be actually some of the most shy people, and yet they're supposed to be these like performers, these artists, these creatives, right? So it's really important for us to know, obviously, what our mission is, because these are our lessons. This is where we extract energy and resources and treasures in our lives. But the first step in extracting those resources is the polar opposite. And I'm telling you, still on a weekly basis, I find myself in step 1 of being an 8 life path. Step 1 of being an 8 life path is victimhood, giving my power away to authority figures. So I have to like wake up and go, come back, Nat, come back. For you as a 3, the theme is going to be, my voice doesn't matter.
Mm.
and existential insecurity about whether what you have to say matters.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So wanting to keep quiet versus saying, wait a minute, it's okay to shine. It's okay to shine. It's okay to shine bright.
Mm.
So why don't I go over all the life paths really quick, in case everybody wants to hear what theirs is all about. So, okay, so the one life path, the mission of the one life path is independence. So ones are supposed to be pioneers, innovators. They're supposed to tread their own path and be unique. The opposite of that, the way that ones are trained to become that superhero is through codependency and wanting to fit in. Okay. Ouch. Yeah. I'm just thinking of my best girlfriend. She's like, that's been the theme of her life. She's like, please. Okay, 2 life paths are here with the mission of being the peacemakers. And guess what? The Law of Polarity says that 2s will experience firsthand conflict, abandonment, and discord, in particular in relationship, so that they can then come into this powerful mission of peacemaking, of union, helping themselves and others bond up. 3 life paths, the mission is creativity. The pain of that is feeling like their voice doesn't matter, that they should just stay quiet. The 4 life path, their mission is practicality. Their mission is being a builder. And usually the pain that a 4 will experience is fundamental instability. I'm talking about survival. So 4s are put into environments where they have to survive, or they have to be the rock that holds everything together. Okay, so the 5's mission is freedom. Oh gosh, 5s are the adventurers. They are the ones here to take risks, to enjoy life. But the way they're trained is through chaos, fear, and cautiousness. Like they're usually in environments of chaos initially, and thus they develop this like instinct of cautiousness. And so what I do with them in sessions is help them to strategically start to take risks again, to activate this incredible mission that they have of liberating themselves and others. 6s are the healers. Their mission is for healing and caregiving, but the pain is usually neglect. So they were in environments where they were neglected, and they diminish themselves. And so that's one of the ways that they're trained in learning what true healing and true caregiving and self-care looks like. 7 life paths are here. They're the seekers. Their mission is to seek truth. And usually what that means is that the way they're trained is meaninglessness. 7s are just like, really? There's got to be more to life than just this. So they initially experience superficiality. They experience this like this meaninglessness in their life that causes them to seek truth and go beyond the surface. 8 life paths, mission is power and authority. And we are trained by experiencing the misuse of power firsthand in authority figures, and we're trained with victimhood. And the 9s are here to be the humanitarians and to make the world a better place. Thinking of my dad. Their pain, though, is experiencing existential disillusionment about humanity in the world, and wanting to actually hide because they feel that the world is an unsafe place. So that is a brief, very generalized overview of each life path.
Oh, thank you. I could see in the chat that a bunch of people said, "Oh, spot on." So that's good.
Good.
Do any life paths not? This might not be a good question, but do any life paths like not get along?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Oh, I'm so passionate about this. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. But not for the reasons that you think. Gosh. Okay. Let me back up for a second. So let me talk about this law of uniqueness, right? So this is something I'm super passionate about. Really early on in my career, I noticed something, which was that every single person's chart was different. Okay. So what I mean is that the series of numbers that you have in your chart is completely unique and one of a kind. Now, I noticed this early on and I thought it was just a cool fact, but I didn't really simmer on it philosophically until later, until more recently. What this means is that, yeah, we are our own unique snowflake, right? Other modalities confirm this, like we each have completely unique fingerprints and DNA, et cetera, right? But if you really sink into this, what this means is that every single one of us was designed to think different, see different, have different desires and preferences, and have different needs. And this law of uniqueness, in my experience in my coaching practice, is really the root of so much conflict and suffering in relationship. And it to answer your question, all of us with different life path numbers can easily get along if we were to honor ourselves and honor others for who we really are, they really are. The problem is, this is why I make a living doing what I do. The problem is that we assume other people should be like us, like our partner, like my husband. Like I do this all the time. We assume other people should be like us. And if they're not, that they don't love us, there's something wrong with them. And we assume maybe that we should be like them. In which case we struggle with deep insecurity and depression and sadness and social anxiety, because we go out there in the world, and when we try to mold ourselves into other people, we have a very difficult time. So the concept of compatibility in these modalities, astrology, numerology, even like personality typing, to me is a very like old false premise, because really all that's required is for us to honor ourselves and then to learn how to translate the language of our partner or the people that we're interacting with. Right?
So I could see it being like incredibly important, not just to understand your own life path, but to understand other people's. It reminds me of, I read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and just like understanding that women are not like men in so many, senses, was freedom for me, because I could let go of things I was trying to control. Like, why aren't you like me? No, you're a woman. You actually are different because of these things. But I'm gonna let Joe ask a couple questions.
Yeah.
Whoa, Natalie. Whoa, I knew it was gonna be wild, but like, whoa. So good. So one thing I know that you are also very passionate about, that I think everybody would be interested in hearing about, is the 0 point field. That is something I've heard you talk about on I watch your social media, and it's something that's really, I think other guests in this have touched the same kind of thing, but you have another explanation of it, and I'd love to hear you tell everybody what the 0 point field is, because we've talked about every other number but that one. So
that is a big passion of mine. So gosh, let's see, where do I start? Okay. So I discovered the 0 actually well into my numerology career, which you'd think it would sort of have been the first thing, but I became obsessed with numbers and with these patterns in the universe. And so I started to study mathematics and like mystical mathematics. And I had gotten this book that was describing Mayan glyphs. So the Mayans were incredible. They had a very intricate mathematical system. But they were actually one of the earlier civilizations to quote unquote discover the 0. And so I remember flipping through the book, and there was this glyph. So they had these pictures for each number, right? And the picture for the 0 was a seashell. So it was saying basically the 0 is what's in the seashell. It's this like empty space, this field of, it could be filled with anything. The 0 can be filled with anything. And so then I started to study the history of the 0, and it started to blow my mind, because what I found was that the 0 was a number that was actively repressed throughout history, which I know it's like, what? But it's just zero. It's like not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's huge because what the zero points to is the zero points to the source of existence. Like if you think about it conceptually, the zero is where all the other numbers come from, right? It's the place of nothingness. It's the place of unlimited possibility. Certain religious traditions embrace this. Like in Hinduism, it's very much embraced. The concept of the void. In fact, in Eastern traditions, you would meditate on the void. It's incredible. You see in all of these different religious traditions, even the Bible, talks about the source is the void. It's the nothingness. Like that's where creation came from. But it was repressed throughout history for a bunch of different reasons. I could talk for hours about this, so you're gonna have to like reel me in. But it was repressed because in mathematics, when the zero was discovered, mathematicians hated it. They absolutely hated it. And because it did weird, wacky things. The zero would create irrational numbers. And, particularly the Greeks, like mathematicians were rational people. They wanted things to just be boxed in and make sense. And when the zero showed up, it threw everything through a loop. And it creates irrational numbers. It creates infinity. You take your calculator, divide any number by zero, your calculator glitches out. Like, do it right now. It's so cool. Because you divide anything by zero, infinity. So mathematicians try to repress this. And there's even legend that says that Hippasus of Metapontum, this guy in Greece, had discovered irrational numbers, discovered the zero, and that he was murdered by the Pythagorean Brotherhood because the Greeks were so hooked into this idea that life and the nature of life had to be logical, right? Everything had to be explained. But the zero is this mystery. So in mathematics, the zero creates infinity. In Eastern tradition, the zero was the source of existence that you meditate on. That it's the pool of energy where we come from and where we're going to go back to when we're done here. But in quantum physics, the zero is the 0 point field, right? So now in the modern day world, what we've discovered is what the Mayans were touching upon with the zero was absolutely true. It seems that when you take a microscope and you go as deep down into matter as you can go, that we're made up of empty space. Right? It's crazy, and but this empty space is active, right? Quantum physics tells us that the 0 point field, the zero, is actually quite responsive. That it's a field of unlimited possibilities where anything is possible, right? It's incredible. So this just took me down this rabbit hole of having a way for me to connect with my creator, with that infinite intelligence, that really made sense and that was mysterious and magical and beautiful, but that was also really applicable to daily life. And that's what I want to teach people, is that the zero is real. Mathematics proves its existence. Various religious traditions speak about it in a different way, but it's still there. And quantum physics is now proving that this is a real life energy that we can unite with and play with.
I just wanted to touch on that real quick because you said how quantum is the field of unlimited possibilities. And I just want to say, like, when Kristen and I were deciding on a name for this group, that's where that came from. The Quantum Healing Collective, because, when we go into the void in meditation, we can tap into that field of infinite possibilities. Yeah. And that's what we want to do collectively to be able to heal. Just know that anything's possible. It's who we focus on, we become. And so I'm really glad you touched on that. One natural sequence that's numeric, that's been mind-blowing to me, is the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can speak to on that? Because I hear a lot about it. I've read some stuff and it blows my mind how these patterns come up in nature based off this numerical sequence. Is that true?
Yeah. So the Fibonacci sequence, for everybody that doesn't know, is it's like a series of numbers. It's sort of like a ratio of numbers that shows up throughout nature. Seashells, pine cones. It's just incredible. It's beautiful. To me, this is just another expression. It's just another, it's proof that there is an order behind existence. There is some sort of, I sound like a broken record, but there is this infinite intelligence behind existence. And even like seeing repeating numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, there's so many other mathematical, mystical things going on around us. To me, they all come down to the same fundamental thing. There is a cosmic best friend, for sure. There is a cosmic best friend behind the scenes that's there, that the ultimate designer, so to speak. And I think that studying those things and looking at those things is really, really good for those of us who kind of need to rehabilitate our relationship with the divine. A lot of my clients come to me having had a contentious relationship with their spiritual life for various different reasons, and mathematics and these sort of incredible patterns are a great way to reach out your hand once again and hold the hand of this cosmic best friend. So to me, that's just how I view it.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Joe, do you want to ask one more question, then we'll turn it over to the group?
Let's turn it over to the group. I think I can see people stirring, and I think people may have questions because there's a lot of information in it.
Can I just say one thing actually real quick? I just want everyone to know that Nat is so awesome. I've been following her for like so many years. I've been following you. So I'm glad that he contacted you and got you on here.
Thank you so much.
You guys follow her. She has so many great videos. Every single month she puts out the numerology of the month, and I love it. I look forward to it every single month. So
yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you.
It is nice to connect to the numbers. It makes you, it is that like something else to like grab onto and just give you belief in what you are and who you are. And it's just amazing. I love numerology.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions or wants to just share, I see Bob's hand up, so I'll unmute Bob.
Yeah. Oh, I'm good. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Bob.
Thanks a lot for the information. I'm an electrical engineer and a musician, now a farmer. I'm going to retire from that electrical engineer crap. But the funny thing is, my numbers are 6, and being a healer, I assume that I like to fix things, or I'm destined to fix things, and that was one of my problems as an engineer, as far as being able to delegate was a problem for me, because I'd always go in and fix things. I can see solutions to problems in engineering. When something isn't working, I just walk over and do a couple of looks and say, oh, it's that over there. What? It's like that's the problem over there, because I'm really, really good at fixing things, which is kind of a fascinating answer to me being that 6.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really cool. I wasn't neglected as a kid, but then again, I was a loner kind of kid, so maybe you can say that. But I didn't have a whole lot of friends as a kid, but now in my adulthood, we do tend to be my wife and I, we do tend to be the center where a lot of people gravitate towards us and have a lot of fun, and it's really good, and whether we're helping people or not. But I am the fixer. I want to make sure, I don't want to heal the world, but I like to fix problems. So it's kind of a very interesting landing point for the what's that, the life path.
The life path. And Bob, can I say something really quick about the neglect piece?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes the way that this shows up is that because sixes are so naturally oriented to helping other people, that you neglect yourself, right? Okay. So that you might not be, might not take care of yourself as well as you could. And so the theme for sixes, so the little prompt to notice when you're off path. Sixes get off path when they are neglecting themselves and their own well-being in favor of sacrificing for other people or for the common good, right? So it's like the six, you guys are these, I'm wondering if your wife is going to agree with this, because partners of sixes that I've worked with have said this. They've said that sixes are these incredibly open-hearted people who feel everybody. They feel everybody. And there's a tendency to meddle in other people's problems or want to fix, the other things out there, because you are so empathetic. So
that's true.
Yeah. So the problem.
I say that all the time. Yeah. I can't do any wrong. I can't do anything that would hurt anybody, and anything that my path would be to try to help them get beyond their challenges. They're right in front of me, and it frustrates people. It's like even in my band, I'm a rock and roll guitar player too. So in the band, my singer, his job is to set up the lights, and my lights, but he sets them up, takes them and sets them up. And when I see a challenge, I walk over and he'll turn around, Bob, let me do this. He gets very, 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 I wonder what his number is. I want to find out. I'm going to find, and something, just saying that gives me goosebumps, because I am a numbers person, and it's like I'm fascinated. Already have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, he's taking a bunch of notes.
Almost 4 pages of notes.
I love it.
And it's like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
I want to ask a quick question. I have a quick question. All right. The power of 3 seems to be very significant in business building. Can you shed any light to why that is?
The power of the 3 is significant in business building. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about what you mean?
And we have a financial business, and a lot of what we do focuses around the number of 3, of growing the business, and it has to do with 3s. And I just don't know if you have any insight on the number of 3.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked that question was because you don't need to know this, but there in numerology, there's a lot out there. And one of the things that's out there that I think is a false premise is that there are certain numbers that are good for business, and there are certain numbers that aren't. So I was just wanting to dig into that for a second, because every single number is like a beautiful, beautiful expression of the divine, and they all have their own benefits, right? So what I would say is the fact that you're attracted to the 3 in business is incredibly, incredibly magical and interesting. And so here are some of the reasons why that might be. Why might the number 3 be an especially powerful number or archetype? 3 is the number of creation. Okay, so if you think about it, so God, I love this stuff. So the number 1 is the individual. It's one thing, okay? The number 2 is 2 people coming together, for instance. Like it's attraction. It's like that instinct in the universe that we're attracted to mate up. Yeah. And what happens when 2 people come together? They create a baby, that number 3, right? Or they create the expression of the relationship, which is a thing. So I find it really interesting that the 3 is something that you resonate with because it's the number of creation. But also, it tells me that your financial business is not just finances. If you were talking about the number 8, because the 8 is very much like authority, power, CEO, organization. But the 3, it tells me that there is another motivation behind what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, that's so spot on. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because the 3 is this number of just upliftment and joy. It's the eternal child as well. So it's like, it's you. What I would say probably is that if you aren't already, make sure that you're being very overt and obvious about that it's not just financial stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's funny. How you sit down
Thank you
there.
so much. That was
Okay,
awesome.
really.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Wow.
I see Renee's hands up, so I'm gonna unmute Renee. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Sorry. Hey, Natalie. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Good morning. Can you hear me? You guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Natalie, I've been following you for a while now, and you are absolutely incredible. I'm a numbers person as well. Numbers have always intrigued me. And I see 4s a lot, which is actually my life path number. And for the most part, I do resonate with that life path. But could you explain the life path for me a little bit more, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So just as a reminder, it's always important to come back here, is that your life path isn't who you are. It's what you are supposed to do. Okay. It's your mission. Okay. So a 4 life path means that your mission is to be a practical builder in this world who is helping to stabilize yourself and others and create thriving. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and back to the training for the 4 is instability. I was just working with a client this past week who's a 4 life path, and we were talking a lot about this. 4s, you guys have like this superpower of being like a human seismometer, like, you know, like the machines that can feel our space. Okay.
Yes.
So 4s typically can sense instability in other people or in an environment. And this is a beautiful gift to have, because not only can you sense the instability, but you know the puzzle pieces that need to happen to make something stable, to make something thriving. But the downside to this is that you might actually try to stabilize everybody else and take practical action on other people's kingdoms while your very kingdom is crumbling. So the work is to work on you making sure that you're taking practical care of yourself and your own affairs, so that you can share that grounded energy, that strong, beautiful kingdom with other people.
That's awesome. Yeah. You know, and that's pretty much, you just kind of nailed it right on the head, because I've been really, my whole life, I've always tried to fix others and help others kind of in a practical way to kind of build them up. And I always forgot about myself. But this year, which is actually Life Path 4 year, the 2020, it's all about rebuilding myself and kind of taking the stones that have crumbled and rebuilding my life. So that's perfect. That really, grounding has been very big for me this year as an empath, and of course a life path number 4. I'm learning to take the stones that have been thrown at me throughout my whole life, and I'm learning to rebuild my kingdom so I can help others, you know?
Oh yeah.
But I really, Natalie, you're awesome. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
I want to say one more thing to you about that. So one of the things about the 4, so we talked about the 3 is like the creation, it's like the baby, right? 4 is, it's in sacred geometry, it's the square. So it's like 4 walls, right? So this actually tells us that you have an incredible strength. I mean, incredible strength. Like when a 4 is high functioning, when a 4 is taking practical action on solidifying their own life, they become these strong, immovable people who stand up for what they believe with fervor. Like they're like, don't mess with me. Don't mess with me. Yeah. But here's the secret. This is the secret. Okay. One of your lessons are boundaries. Because if you think about it, walls are boundaries, right? 4s can sometimes, go into hiding or hide from their purpose because they feel unsafe in the world, right? If you're a seismometer and you're sensing instability everywhere you go and you're oriented to stabilize everybody else, you're exhausted. It's not safe to go out there in the world, right? It's not safe to go out and do your great work or to create what you want. If you start working on creating boundaries where you're able to just stand strong and say, this is what I'm committed to building. Do you want to join me? When you start to do that, it is going to enable you to, like you said, take those stones that were thrown at you and create a kingdom with people that are in alignment with your values. So boundaries, I want you to look that up. I want you to Google, buy a course on boundaries, because for 4 life paths, it is a game changer.
Yeah, boundaries have definitely been my weakest point, you know, just because I'm always wanting to help others and kind of neglect the boundaries that I have to draw. And it's funny because I'm training right now to be a peer recovery support specialist, and we're learning all about boundaries, which is funny you said that. That's my course right now, is boundaries, boundaries not to cross, you know, with fellow peers, and ethics and all that stuff. So it was funny that you said that, because it's kind of like, whoa, I'm learning that right now.
You're on the right path, Renee. Yes.
I am. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
See, Rick's hand was up, so I'm going to go unmute Rick.
Hi, Natalie. Good morning.
Hi, Rick.
I wonder if you could briefly touch on the birth name aspect and how it relates to the birth year.
Yes. Or you mean like how it relates to the life path number, like the date number? Okay. Oh, that's a good question. So, and it's a really good question because you guys are not yet maybe numerology nerds, but if you become a numerology nerd, this is a really important point. When I first started this work, I was really confused. So when you go and you read in a numerology book about the different numbers, what they'll say is okay, here's your life path number, which is your mission. And here's your expression number from your birth name, which talks about your gifts and your talents, okay? But when you read these descriptions, they sound really similar. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. If you get confused when you go out there and you read this stuff, you're not alone. That's why I have to make it really clear to people. Your life path number derived from your birth date is your mission and what you're supposed to do, right? It's who you're supposed to become. Your expression number is who you are. So your expression number is what is derived from your birth name. And it helps us identify your primary gifts, who you are, and that actually links up to your life path, right? So, okay, I'm an 8 life path. So my mission is to develop power, authority in the business world. But I'm a 9 expression number. So that's actually who I am. And it's so accurate. It's so true. The 9 is the humanitarian, but typically when the 9 is in the expression number position, we're these very passionate, dramatic, deeply feeling people, poetic. And so I have to basically, to be successful as the CEO authority, I have to be myself, which is sharing wisdom. One of the gifts of the 9 is wisdom. It's a deep desire to help others in a big way, like out in the world, right? So the expression number is very, very important. And if you guys want to know what your expression number is, again, just like Google, calculate my expression number. And there are free online calculators because it's a little bit more intricate. Each number in your name, or each letter in your name corresponds to a number. So, but make sure that when you do the calculation, you're using the name on your birth certificate. So not your present name, not your married name. Even if you were adopted, we still use the initial name that's on your birth certificate, that first birth certificate. So make sure to use that one. Does that answer your question, Rick? Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions or wanted to share in general?
Oh, looks like Angela.
Oh, cool. Sweet. I'll unmute Angela. Okay. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Angela.
Hi. Thank
Hi.
you. I was just curious about the name and the letters in terms of, say, other alphabets in the world that have different, and plus considering the English language used to have more letters, and other alphabets that have different amounts of letters, or alphabets that actually use characters.
Yeah.
How does that
Yeah. So actually there's different forms of numerology that like for different languages and things like that. So if somebody has a foreign name that's not based on our alphabet, then I have to refer them to a numerologist within that culture. The premise with all of this is that nothing is a coincidence, right? So that the letters and the language that might be within our culture are there for a reason. And if we can allow them to correspond to certain numbers, that then we're able to decode the fundamental vibration of it. So all I can do is do it within the English language. And then if you have a name that's a different language, then there are other like graphs to be able to do that with that alphabet. Does that make sense? That wasn't very eloquent.
Yeah. Where do they come from? I mean, the Mayan. You said the Mayans. Where do the graphs? Where did they originate?
Well, no. So no, not from the Mayans. So they say that Pythagoras, he was a Greek philosopher 2,500 years ago. He actually created he made popular the Pythagorean theorem. They say that the concept originated from Pythagoras, but basically the numbers, it's really, really simple. The A is the first letter of our alphabet. It has the number 1. The B is a 2. The C is a 3. So it's just like creating a graph like that. In essence, like, the first letter to the last letter, that they're in that order for a reason is the premise, right? That the patterns of that infinite intelligence behind existence is woven through everything that we do. So it's actually really simple. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you correspond to each letter.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see Johnny's got his hand up. He wants to ask a question. So Johnny, take it away, buddy.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Natalie. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. I can't tell you how many times in the last 48 minutes the hair on my arms and legs has stood up on end listening to what you have to say. I think you created a numerology nerd today, at least one.
Good.
So this is something that I've been, just vaguely familiar with. I know that it exists. I knew what my number was prior to this, but never really dove into it. I'm a 7. I just did the math on one of those calculators, and my wife's a 4. So very compatible, but it's so amazing to listen to you pretty much tell my innermost feelings and me an observation of my wife's innermost feelings through these numbers. I mean, they're spot on. They are so precise, and not just in what our like life's purpose should be, but in the aspect of like what trials and tribulations we've been through that are kind of that polarity effect, away from what we're actually supposed to be doing. And like, that's what really got me. I was listening to you talk to Renee about the 4, and it is so spot on. And it's absolutely amazing. So my question for you was, is there any specific literature that you would recommend for someone who's new to numerology to kind of dive in and get into that?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to give you sort of a cop-out answer, and then I'll give you a more specific one. So my cop-out answer is Google it and find an author that you resonate with, okay? Because my experience has been that some people really resonate with like Glynis McCants, who's she's a numerologist, and she's like on the radio a lot, and she's a great advocate for getting the message out about numerology. So she has a bunch of books out there. So some people really like her. 7 life paths, like you probably would like Matthew Goodwin, because you guys have like that scientific mind, and you're like always into the details and stuff. So if you like the details, like you want to get deep down into the details of it, Matthew Goodwin's book, The Beginner's Guide to Numerology, I think is what it's called. It's on Amazon. Or that would be a great one. Is it there? Yeah. So I would recommend to just like trust yourself as you research to find, because there's so many materials out there. Like, it's insane. There is a lot of stuff. My favorite was Matthew Goodwin. And then also I highly recommend the book. Oh, do I have it here? Hold on. Yeah. The Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe. this is so good, because it's not on numerology. And so I know you're like rolling your eyes, but it's on numbers in nature, and it's on the way that numbers act in nature. So so it's really, really great for those of you who still might be a little bit cynical, because here's the thing about the New Age movement. You know, like you'll read your horoscope, or you'll read something about yourself and you're like, that's cool. But if you don't actually take the steps to understand the underpinnings of why it's accurate, it's not going to be transformative for you. So it's going to be fun, and it'll be a fun like party trick. But anyway, A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe is one of those books that will help you understand where numerology actually comes from. It's not some random person that just said the 1 means this or the 3 means this. You know, it's actually based on these fundamental shapes and patterns in the universe. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you, Johnny. So I had one more question. I remember that there was 3 numbers. You touched on life path and life expression. Is there a 3rd number that's important?
There's a lot of numbers that are important, but I would say that there's 4 core numbers. So the life path comes from your birth date, but the other 3 come from your birth name. So the expression number is the final digit where you add your full name down to a single digit. And again, that's talking about who you are and the primary gifts that you have to give. But then when you add down just the vowels of your name, you get my most favorite number to talk about. It's called your heart's desire or your soul's urge number. And it's a fundamental need that you have in your life. It's like rocket fuel. If you're not receiving this in your life, if you're not receiving this from your partner, if you're not receiving this in your career, you are going to feel like something really, really important and fundamental is missing. This is like food and water for your soul. So random like story, my heart's desire or soul's urge is the number 2. And I found that a lot of us deny our soul's urge for a good amount of time. I definitely did. So the 2 soul's urge means that I'm very relationship and partnership oriented, that I thrive in partnerships, that ultimately I'm wanting peace and communion and harmony. But when I was young, I didn't know this about myself. And I manifested some relationships with men where I was taught that this incredible gift that I had of like deep partnership and deep companionship was seen as codependent. And it was seen as like really irritating. And I wish that I could just reach out my hand if anybody has a soul's urge that they're denying. And I wish I could just like hold you and hug you, because it's how you were designed. Like this is an incredible need and gift that you have. So I highly recommend to calculate your soul's urge or heart's desire, because that is going to help you out a ton. And in my coaching practice, one of the things that we do is we'll calculate it, and then I'll give you an assignment of actually bringing that soul's urge down to a sentence. Like, okay, for me, it's like to tell my husband, I need deep one-on-one connection time. And to actually start to vocalize this need to the people in your life, or to vocalize it in your career or profession, it's a game changer. Like I cannot tell you how many of us deny this aspect of who we are. And because it's in the vowels are very soft. And so it's typically like something that we hide, and it's this subtle thing about us that only our close ones will know about us. But it's really important to honor it. And then the 4th number, the 4th core number, is your personality number. And this is really like your attraction factor. So it's based on the consonants of your birth name. Consonants are kind of like stark and loud, and they're like out there, you know. And so this is how some numerologists say this is how you present yourself in the world. And I think that's true. But I think it also is a gift that you have of how to attract people into your life, how to attract clients, money, relationships, etc. So that's another really cool one to dive into.
Awesome. I can foresee that you're going to get like 25 people reaching out to you after this.
There's a lot of resources on my Instagram page or Facebook, same stuff. And then I have like programs on my website and working with me one-on-one. But for any of you, I'm really sensitive right now to people that have budgeting issues and things like that because of quarantine and all this craziness that's happening. If you have a budgeting issue and you can't invest in these kinds of things, there are so many free resources on like numerologist.com, which is a company that I collaborate with. They like have like these like free mini readings that where you can kind of learn the basics. So that's a great place to start if you are on a budget.
Great. Yeah, that's where I went to. And they gave a nice comprehensive report. It was really sweet. I recommend everyone do it. Does anyone have any other questions or want to share anything? All right, cool.
Betty wants to. Betty's up there.
Oh, sweet.
Hi, Betty.
Welcome to the group, by the way, Betty. There you go. Go ahead, Betty.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me. And Natalie, you are amazing. I took numerology like 30 years ago, but your articulation about numerology just like blows my mind. Anyway, I wanted to share that my life number is a 7. My house equals a 7, the house number, and my daughter's birthday is 7779. Like, I'm like filled with 7s, but her life number is 8. I just find that interesting that no matter where I go, I'm seeing 7s.
Isn't that incredible? That's this other thing that blew my mind early on is, I would do a client's numbers and they would be like, that was my favorite number my whole life. There are 3 life paths. Oh my gosh, I love the 3. There's 7 life path. I had a boss when I was a nutritionist, and I did his numbers, and he was a 7 life path. And just knowing that he was a 7, he didn't need to know anything about the 7 because it was like, he said, that's the weirdest thing since I was a little boy. The 7 was always this like mystical number that I was always attracted to.
Right.
So isn't it cool?
777 is God's number. Did you know that?
No. So what do you mean?
Well, you know how they say, I hate to use his name, the ugly one, Satan's number is 666.
Oh,
well, number is 777.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to do research on that, but yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole other, Betty, that's a whole other subject too. The 666 thing, I've done a ton of research on that. It's so fascinating. But what I'll say in short, because I get a lot of questions on like if there's good numbers, bad numbers, and those types of things. There aren't, right? Like that all of these patterns, these numbers are absolutely like they're divine expressions. And oh my gosh, the 666 thing, did you ever research why that is a thing? It's fascinating.
I haven't, but it's like just something out there, but I will now. In fact, I want to get that book by Matthew Goodwin.
Yes, the numerology book. Yeah. And if you're ever curious, because you're a 7, so you want to dive into the truth of things, start reading up about really where 666 came from, because it was actually I think it was the Christians were being persecuted. And so they came up with codes for talking about Nero, and 666 was actually the alphanumeric code for Nero, this emperor that was killing all of their people. Yeah. So it was actually a very beautiful, a very human construct, but fascinating. So that could be a cool like afternoon research project.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I see, Joe, do you have another question, buddy?
Yeah, real quick. I know we're getting low on time, but we've been into numerology and into you for so long, and ironically, we are both eight path numbers, and our daughter is an 8 path.
No.
Yeah.
That,
so I don't know
exciting.
what that means, but I can tell you right now, sometimes we look at one another and go, what is this going to amount to? Because we're all very, it's intense. It's an intense house.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to tell you. So my husband and I are both 8s.
Get out.
No. And let me tell you, I remember our first date, okay? Our first date, and we're driving in the car, and he's like, oh, anyway, it's a long story. Nick is so different from me. He's so different. But he's like, so different. Like, you know, like, he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Like, I mean, he hunts. I was yesterday picking up all the snails out of the road to save them. Like, we're so different. But anyways, but I remember he's like, hey, so he's like, I did my number, because we had just met, you know? And so he's like, I did my number and I'm an 8. And he's like, you're an 8. What does that mean? Like, does it mean we're compatible? And I remember just smiling to myself and going, well, Nick, it means that one of us is going to have to yield a little bit more because they're both numbers of leadership, right? They're both numbers of leadership and of command and of power. And so you really have to negotiate leadership. And so I could talk for hours about that.
Oh, we could too.
So for you, and then to have a child, oh my gosh, that's an 8. Like, you guys should really come up with like a plan of what each person is in charge of.
Let's do that. Let's do that. I love it.
That's great.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I adore all of you.
Amazing.
All right, Nat. Well, we're now gonna close the meeting, and I just want to thank you for coming. And just so you know, we have a new speaker on each week, twice a week, and it's kind of someone similar to yourself, you know, speaking on their own topic. So I wanted to welcome you to our group. You're always welcome here. Anyone you know that needs a place to come, learn, and just, you know, be a part of a group that's looking to grow. So thank you so much for your time. What we now do is we have Sean read. He's going to read the dedication of merit, and then we're going to just end the meeting.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Natalie. That was amazing. So we dedicate the merit of this meeting to all of those awakening at this precious time. May our efforts to better ourselves help shift the planetary consciousness from fear into love. May this energy ripple out into the world and awaken those with closed hearts, illuminate closed minds, and inspire all to live within the presence of compassion and generosity.